It was a crisp winter morning in Washington, D.C., and the air buzzed with a peculiar mix of tension and anticipation. The peaceful transfer of power, a cornerstone of American democracy, was just days away. Inside the White House, Joe Biden sat in the Oval Office, staring at a draft of his farewell address. His presidency had been marked by challenges, pandemics, inflation, international conflicts. But now, with his successor, Donald Trump, preparing to take the reins again, Biden felt a strange mix of relief and unfinished business. His advisors crowded the room, discussing the logistics of the transition, but Biden's mind was elsewhere. He tapped his pen against the desk, his thoughts lingering on Trump's relentless criticisms. "I need to address the nation one last time," Biden said suddenly, his voice firm. His chief of staff nodded. "Of course, sir, but what tone do you want to strike?" Biden leaned back in his chair, a glimmer of mischief in his eye. "Honest," he replied. "I want the truth out there. Calm, measured, but something they won't forget." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of his words. The scene shifted to Mar-a-Lago, where Trump, surrounded by supporters, watched a news report about Biden's upcoming speech. "Let's see what Sleepy Joe has to say," he quipped, his tone dismissive. But there was a flicker of curiosity in his expression, one that he couldn't quite hide. The day of Biden's farewell address arrived, and millions tuned in across the nation. From coast to coast, Americans gathered in their living rooms, unsure of what to expect. Biden began with a warm acknowledgement of his administration's accomplishments, but quickly pivoted to the future. "Transitioning power is not just a tradition, it's a duty," he said, his voice steady. "To Mr. Trump, I extend my congratulations, but I must also offer a challenge. Lead with integrity. Serve the people, not yourself." Gas rippled through the audience as Biden's tone sharpened. "Our country deserves a leader who unites, not divides. I've made my share of mistakes, but I've always tried to put the American people first. That's my hope for the next administration." Social media exploded. Some praised Biden's candor, while others accused him of undermining the process. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump watched in stony silence, his jaw tightening as the words sunk in. The day after Biden's farewell address, the air was thick with anticipation. Donald Trump had remained relatively silent throughout the day, but as soon as the evening hit, he was ready to respond. The press gathered outside Mar-a-Lago, cameras trained on him as he made his way to the podium. He cracked a smile, eyes glinting with a mixture of amusement and challenge. "Let me tell you something," Trump began, his voice booming with confidence. "Biden has had his say, and now it's my turn." He took a breath, pausing for dramatic effect. "You know, people have been saying he didn't say enough, and I agree. What he said was just words. But actions speak louder than words, folks." His supporters cheered. Trump's words were a balm for their frustration. "This country is a mess because of failed leadership. I mean, look at what we've been left with. Inflation, crime rates, open borders. It's a disaster. But don't worry, we'll fix it. Believe me." He looked out at the cameras, almost daring Biden to respond. "I've always been about results, and that's exactly what you'll get from me in my second term. We'll restore America's greatness, and we'll do it quickly." The crowd erupted into applause, but the mood in Washington was far different. Biden's words, although harsh, had struck a nerve. The contrast was stark. For many, Trump's retort was a direct challenge to the more diplomatic tone Biden had tried to set. As his speech ended and the cameras flashed, Trump's followers buzzed with excitement. But in the halls of power, the tension remained palpable. Social media exploded with debates. Was Biden right to challenge Trump? Was Trump's reply just more of the same, blustery but void of substance? The rhetoric between the two men was only intensifying, and the country braced itself for the next phase of the transition. Inauguration Day was tense, more so than usual. Washington, D.C. had seen its fair share of transitions, but this one felt different. The streets were lined with security, barricades, and the occasional protester. Millions were watching the ceremony, but for different reasons. People were divided, not just politically, but emotionally. As Biden and Trump arrived at the Capitol, the moment was heavy with unspoken tension. Biden was calm, wearing his usual air of professionalism. Trump, however, seemed poised and ready for the show. He walked with the confidence of a man who believed in his destiny, despite the contentious departure from office. The two men exchanged a stiff handshake, the kind that spoke volumes without a word. Biden whispered something to Trump in passing, just a brief, hushed sentence that no one could quite catch. Trump paused and raised an eyebrow, his lips forming a thin line. There was no obvious response, but his gaze lingered for just a moment longer than expected. The brief exchange set the stage for speculation and rumors. What had Biden said? Was it a challenge? A final jab? Or was it something else entirely? As Trump took the oath of office, a mixture of cheers and jeers filled the air. For the first time, the peaceful transfer of power felt more like a battleground. The contrast between Biden's measured speech and Trump's defiant aura could not have been more stark. It was as if two opposing forces had collided, with the fate of the nation hanging in the balance. Later that evening, the media buzzed with excitement. While the ceremony had been filled with high tension and political drama, what happened behind closed doors was about to take center stage. The whispers began to circulate around Washington about a conversation that had taken place between Joe Biden and Donald Trump during the inaugural transfer of power. Those in the know were tight-lipped, but as is often the case in the Capitol, secrets had a way of getting out. An anonymous source close to the Biden administration revealed the shocking details of what had transpired during that brief handshake, that seemingly inconspicuous exchange. Biden's parting words to Trump, though few, were sharp and loaded. The source claimed that as they shook hands, Biden whispered, "Prove me wrong." Those three words immediately sent shockwaves throughout the political world. Prove me wrong. Simple, director, but undeniably potent. It was not just a farewell message, it was a challenge. Biden had planted a seed of doubt, a final push that could not be ignored. Whether it was meant to inspire or provoke, only Biden knew. But it didn't take long for the news to leak, and when it did, the country's attention was drawn once more to the ongoing battle of words between the two powerful men. Donald Trump, never one to back down from a challenge, quickly caught wind of the news. The public, desperate to know what had been said, were hungry for a response. Trump was always ready to seize an opportunity for the spotlight. Within hours, he took to social media with his signature boldness. A tweet appeared on his account. Challenge accepted. It was short, decisive, and left little to the imagination. With the words, Trump attached a video, a montage of his first days in office, filled with actions meant to prove his point. He signed several executive orders, all aimed at reversing Biden-era policies. Each signature, each move, felt like a direct response to Biden's whispered challenge. The country watched with bated breath as Trump swiftly took action. His supporters erupted in cheers, their faith in him reinvigorated. Meanwhile, Biden's camp found themselves questioning the implications of his own words. Had he truly set the stage for something larger? The narrative of the day was no longer about the ceremony or the peaceful transition of power. It was about this unseen battle, this hidden challenge that now dominated every news cycle. The tension between Biden's desire for unity and Trump's drive for action was undeniable. Both sides were now locked in a game of one-upmanship, each looking to outdo the other, each eager to prove their point. The question that hung in the air was clear. Was Biden's challenge a strategic move? Or was it a mistake, opening the door for Trump to dominate once again? The debate raged on, but one thing was certain. The rivalry between the two men wasn't over. The stakes had only risen. Now the entire country was waiting for the next move, and it would be a battle to watch. The days following the exchange between Biden and Trump felt like the calm before a storm. With each passing moment, the political atmosphere grew more charged. Both sides of the aisle seemed to brace for what was to come, knowing that this challenge, this seemingly innocuous whisper, would shape the future of American politics for years to come. The question that had begun circulating everywhere was, how would Trump respond? The media, eager to report on every movement, analyzed Trump's every decision. What would he do now that Biden had handed him a challenge so public, so direct? As Trump continued to roll out executive actions and rally his supporters, it was clear that the battle was far from over. His every move was being watched with scrutiny by both critics and fans alike. making it even more urgent for him to deliver results that matched the challenge Biden had laid before him. Meanwhile, Biden, now in his quieter, post-presidential life, remained largely out of the spotlight. He had expressed his pride in his time in office, but had also left a lingering feeling of uncertainty. Had he truly meant to provoke Trump in that moment, or was his challenge simply the result of years of pent-up frustration with his predecessor? The nation wondered. And more importantly, would Trump rise to meet this challenge, or would it cause more division? The world's eyes were on Washington, and with every passing day the question loomed larger. Could Trump fulfill the prophecy that had been set before him? Could he deliver the unity he had promised, or would he fall into the same traps that had plagued his previous tenure? Each decision, each move, was analyzed under the microscope of history. As the weeks went by, it became apparent that Biden's last words would continue to haunt both men. For Trump, it was more than a challenge. It was a legacy-defining moment. His actions from here on out would either confirm or deny Biden's suspicions. The political stage had shifted once again, and the country was poised for whatever drama, action, or disappointment was to come next. Only time would reveal the true consequences of Biden's parting challenge. Would the rivalry continue to escalate, or could a new path be forged? With the balance of power now in Trump's hands, the nation could only watch as the next chapter of American politics unfolded, one that promised to be filled with unprecedented twists, turns, and revelations.